ठीक है अभिषेक जी, तो फॉर्मली स्टार्ट करते हैं हम।
Hmm.
द मेंबर्स में ज्वाइन इन बिटवीन।
Yep.
Okay, then I see Ankur Tayal. Welcome to all of you in this today's webinar on the topic of IFRS 18 presentation of the financial statements by eminent speaker CA Abhishek Jain ji. And as a series of the webinars on various professional topics of the latest updates, we are again here to with this webinar, and on the various other professional topics also will be addressed as soon as possible in the time to come. And we will be back with various professional updates on the on and on the professional topics like tax audits. And now the year is starting with this with the various कंप्लाइंसेज, बहुत सारी कंप्लाइंसेज वाला टाइम अब जैसे चाहे जीएसटी का हो, चाहे वो कॉर्पोरेट टैक्स में है, चाहे कंपनीज में है, और अब वो सारे कंप्लाइंस का टाइम आ रहा है। एंड देयर आर सम वेरियस चेंजेस आल्सो, लाइक इनकम टैक्स एक्ट में अब सारे कुछ चेंज हो गया है। तो धीरे धीरे उन सब टॉपिक्स के साथ हम वेबिनार ज्ञान की बात पे आपके साथ आएंगे। और जब हमारे सेंट्रल काउंसिल मेंबर ज्ञानचंद मिश्रा जी, फाउंडर ऑफ दिस ज्ञान की बात, आई थिंक वो मीनवाइल ज्वाइन करेंगे। अभी शिमला में किसी एमएसएमई प्रोग्राम में ही इज बिजी, बट ही विल ज्वाइन। अगर वो ज्वाइन करते हैं बीच में तो देन वी विल लव टू हेयर हिम आल्सो। एंड मीनवाइल, विदाउट टेकिंग मच टाइम, आई हैंड ओवर द सेशन टू सी अभिषेक जैन जी फॉर द technical presentation on the topic. See Abhishek ji.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much, Ankur Tayal ji, for such a warm welcome and sharing the brief insights about Gyan Ki Baat. And before we go ahead, a special thanks from my side to Gyanchand Mishra sir. He's a Central Council member, as Ankur ji has recently mentioned, and alongside to Puneet Sakhuja ji for inviting me to share my thoughts on this newly issued standard, which is IFRS 18. And it is also a privilege for me to share this platform with the distinguished professionals and participants from the finance, and the accounting world. Now, looking forward to an engaging and interactive session with all of you. So, should we start?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. So, I'm sharing my screen with everyone.
Yeah.
So, everyone can see my screen, Ankurji?
No, Abhishek sir.
नहीं सर, अभी स्क्रीन नहीं दिख रही है।
एक सेकंड रुकिएगा।
हेलो।
हाँ जी ठीक है अंकुर जी, लेट मी सेट इट अप अगेन। ये स्क्रीन क्यों नहीं आ रही है?
क्योंकि आपने अलाउ किया हुआ है ना उसमें स्पीकर को।
हाँ, मैंने सारे अलाउ किए हुए हैं। एक सेकंड रुकिएगा, गिव मी अ सेकंड प्लीज, गिव मी अ सेकंड। Accessibility Android Auto. Ankur ji, just wait for a minute, please.
या श्योर श्योर।
Ankurji, I'm having some technical issue. Just wait for a minute, please, if you can, please.
Sir, if sharing hosting rights help you, then I can just make you the host.
Sorry?
If sharing the hosting rights help you, then I can make you the host also.
एक सेकंड रुकिएगा.
Co-host. Yeah.
वीडियो ऑडियो चैनल पहले ना नीचे आ रहा था स्क्रीन शेयरिंग का ऑप्शन, तो
जी
मैंने इसको ना वेब से ज्वाइन किया है, ऐप से नहीं किया है इस
जी
बार. तो एक सेकंड रुकिएगा. शो कैप्शन, कंपैरिजन, व्हाइट बोर्ड, कैंसिल, सेटिंग्स, मोर, स्टॉप इनकमिंग वीडियो. गिव मी अ सेकंड प्लीज. स्क्रीन शेयरिंग इसमें हाँ, इसमें क्यों नहीं आ रहा है? मैंने वेब से ज्वाइन किया. हाँ, is my screen visible now?
Yes sir,
Ankur,
screen is visible. Yes, IFRS 18 Ind AS 118. Yes.
yeah, sure. Thank you very much, everyone, for having the patience. So let's start. So IFRS 18, we are going to discuss IFRS 18. This is a very newly issued standard, and it would be applicable from 1st of April 2027. As we know, all our Ind AS are converged from the IFRS, so the corresponding Ind AS is 118. इसके बारे में हम बात करेंगे, which standard it would be replacing, what was basically the need to have this standard in detail in the later parts of it. So this standard is basically the presentation and disclosure in the financial statements. So presentation and disclosure, these are two different things. Now, the first thing that arises is, before the issue of this standard, was there any other relevant standard which was catering to these requirements? Yes. There was another standard which was Ind AS 1. We will discuss certain things about this also. Now, the important thing to note here is the term presentation and disclosure. Under Ind AS 118, financial statements are classified into two categories. One is the primary financial statements, and second one is the notes to accounts. Primary financial statements includes balance sheet, profit and loss account, the cash flow statement, and statement of changes in equity. Notes to accounts, this means the notes. Now, why it is relevant for presentation and disclosure? Presentation word would be relevant for this primary financial statements, and disclosure would be done in the notes. There is a difference for presentation and disclosure in comparison to Ind AS 1, because earlier these two terms were used interchangeably. Now these two terms cannot be used interchangeably. There is a specific meaning to presentation and disclosure. In case any one of you have any queries, you can put that in the chat. Now, the background. Primary financial statement project we discussed. It is basically the primary financial statement, balance sheet, again, profit and loss account, statement of changes in equity, and the cash flow statement. What was basically the need? There was basically an observation that the financial statement lacked detailed requirement on classification of income and expenses. To cater this thing, we will discuss in details all the income and expenses would be classified into 5 categories. There was no such categorization earlier. Presentation of subtotals. We will discuss this also, as to how this presentation would make the financial statements more presentable, and the aggregation and the disaggregation. So this standard basically impacts how the CFOs, etc., will communicate the financials, the financial performance of the entity. To address all these things, an exposure draft was issued by IASB on the general presentation and disclosure requirements. Thereafter, after deliberation, it was issued in 2024. As we discussed earlier, this is effective 1st of April 27. However, the Ind AS that we have, it is in the draft stage. It is in the draft stage and is yet to be notified. We will touch base upon it in the later part of our discussion. Now, moving next. Background and applicability. As we mentioned, in April 24, ISB published IFRS 18. To align this, Ind AS 118 has been issued, and it is yet to be notified along with the consequential amendment to Schedule 3. We discussed that the corresponding standard for Ind AS 118 was earlier Ind AS 1. Ind AS 1 will cease to exist. So some of its requirement will go to Ind AS 118, and the others would go to Ind AS 8. We will touch base upon it in the later part of our discussion. Effective date would be the same, which is for the IFRS, that is 1st of April 27. In case there are any entities which are following the calendar year, then they can do, early adoption is permitted, effective 1st of January 2027. Now, whenever we present any financial statement, we present a comparative numbers also. Comparative number. So the comparative number for 1st of April 27 is 1st of April 26. That is the financial year that has just started. So in a nutshell, we can say that the impact of this standard would be reflected in the books that would be prepared next year. For this year, we can say for this year, financial results also. For the comparative period immediately preceding the first application. That is why it is called the retrospective application, required in both the annual and the interim financial statements. Interim financial statements, we can understand the quarterly financial statements which are published by the listed entities. To summarize, we can say that it would be effective 1st of April 27. Early adoption is permitted if you are following the calendar year. Comparatives needs to be provided, and it would replace Ind AS 1. Applicability to applicable to all the entities which are preparing their financials in accordance with Ind AS. Now, moving next. This standard, as we discussed earlier, it would have on the classification of income and expenses. It would have an impact on the subtotals. It would have an impact on the aggregation. It would have an impact on the management performance measures. इस पे हम बहुत अच्छा खासा टाइम स्पेंड करेंगे. It is one of the key element of this standard. Apart from this, there are consequential amendments to the other standards. इसको हम बिल्कुल एंड में डिस्कस करेंगे. At this point of time, we would only touch and go. One is the statement of cash flow. Another one is earning per share. Another one is interim financial reporting. The impact, when the impact of this Ind AS 118 will come to other standards, then the effective date would be the same. This means that the effective date for these and for Ind AS 118 would be the same. One of the key change would be goodwill to be presented as a separate line item. We would discuss it in detail when we would discuss the classification, or we can say the aggregation at both the stages. Now, what is changing? Point number one, net profit is not going to change. What is changing? It is basically the way in which financial performance or the financial results are communicated. So we can say there is no change in the net profit. This means that there is no change in the method of calculation, computation, etc. What is changing then? It is present the results on the face of the income statement. How the results are being presented on the face of the income statement, and disclose the information in the notes. Okay. So there are basically 4 changes we discussed. This is basically the classification category. This is the subtotals category. This is the management performance measures category. And these are basically the aggregation and disaggregation requirements. So in a nutshell, if we would summarize this standard in 2 or 3 lines as to what is going to be the net impact, the net impact is going to be the presentation and disclosure. Presentation means classification of income and expenses into, these are 3 main categories. Overall, there are 5 categories, and showing the subtotals, management performance measures, and thereafter, lastly, the aggregation and disaggregation. And lastly, we can say the consequential impact on the other standards. We will discuss everything one by one in detail. 5 categories, minimum 2 new subtotals, management defined performance measures, aggregation, disaggregation, and consequential impact on the other AS. Now, 5 categories of income and expenses. There are 5 categories. One is operating, investing, financing, income tax, and discontinued operations. Before going ahead, let's assume the impact की इन 5 classifications की जरूरत कैसे थी. Let's take an example of a manufacturing unit, or let's put it this way. Yeah, let's take an example of a manufacturing unit. It is there into the manufacturing, so it has got certain operating results, either gain or loss, plus it has got the investment income also. Now this is the net number that is coming. At this point of time, since this classification is not mandatory, it is very difficult for the users of the financial statements to understand कि जो company के primary operations हैं उनसे net results क्या है, either it is a gain or loss, and as to how the organization is performing. Likewise, we can assume the financing thing. Let's assume there are two entities in the manufacturing in the same industry, entity 1 and entity 2. Both of them have the external financing of rupees 100 crore. One has taken it through borrowings. Another one has done it through equity. If we are going to compare the results, and if we would compare the results till here, we can compare how effective their operations are because financing element is segregated. So this financing component, if it exists or not, is not going to have an impact as to how we review the financial statements. So we can review the operating and investing, and thereafter we can review the financing component as to how much impact it is having. Thereafter, there is income tax and discontinued operations. So in a nutshell, this is basically the rationale as to why this categorization of income and expenses is there to ensure comparability. We can say what is the net impact to ensure the comparability, consistency, and better presentation. Now, moving next. These are the 5 categories of income and expenses that we discussed. Operating is a residual category. Residual means जो कहीं नहीं जाएगा वो ऑपरेटिंग में चला जाएगा. प्राइमरीली ऑपरेटिंग में क्या आएगा, वो जो कंपनी की मेन बिजनेस एक्टिविटीज है. But even then we would consider it as residual category. So we need to understand in detail as to what is investing activities, what are financing activities, income taxes we all know, and discontinued operations we will discuss a little bit about it. One more important thing, operating, investing, and financing. These are the 3 things that are being used in the cash flow statement also. Please note, there is no alignment of these activities in cash flow statement and Ind AS 118. Let's take an example. Property, plant, and equipment. It is a part of Ind AS 16. It has been sold. There is a gain or there is a loss. Under the cash flow statement, it would form part of investing activity, and under Ind AS 18, Ind AS 118, it would be part of operating. The reason for operating is it is something which is related to the main business activities, and any gain or loss or gain on disposal of anything which is related to the normal operations would be classified into operating. So this operating, investing, and financing are not in sync with what is being there in the cash flow statement. Any questions up till here? Ankurji, are there any questions in the chat box? Ankurji, Kirti madam, any questions? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, great. Let's move. So we discussed this 5 classification. One is operating, investing, financing, income tax, and discontinued operations. This is basically, we can say, the classification of income or expenses. Thereafter, we discuss two things regarding the subtotal. There are 5 subtotals. However, this one, operating profit and profit before financing and income tax, these two are mandatory. They need to be disclosed. Another thing is, this we will discuss in detail on the presentation. So financial statements can be presented by nature or by function. This is an example of the financial statements by nature. So these are, I repeat, 5 classification of expenses: operating, investing, finances, income tax, and discontinued operations. Regarding the subtotals, there are 5, but 2 are mandatory. Now, let's assume a situation where this is investing, this portion is investing, right? Is investing. It is quite possible that there are no investing activities. In that case, operating profit is equal to profit before financing and income tax. The point is, even if they are equal, even then they needs to be shown as 2 separate line items. Now, we discussed that operating is basically the residual. So now come to investing. What the investing activities are. For an activity, for an income or expenses to be classified into investing, it should be capable of generating the returns individually. The first thing is individually, and both of things are mandatory, largely independent of the other resources. इसमें primarily कौन कौन सी चीजें आएंगी? All the financial assets which are specified under Ind AS 109 and investment property which is there under Ind AS 40. Example, interest income and fair value change on the financial assets. Financial assets, we can say fair value change in the equities, we can say dividend, investment in unconsolidated, because consolidated it would get eliminated, investment in unconsolidated subsidiaries, associates and joint ventures, and cash and cash equivalent. In case of rental income, depreciation, impairment losses and reversals, as well as income and expenses from derecognition. Receivables for rent generated by those investments. पीछे हमने आपसे डिस्कस किया था कि जो पीपीई का जो गेन और लॉस है, इट वुड बी पार्ट ऑफ ऑपरेटिंग. तो जिस कैटेगरी में प्राइमरी क्लासिफिकेशन होगा गेन और लॉस, उसी में जाएगा. यहाँ पर हमने देखा कि इनकम एंड एक्सपेंसेस और गेन और लॉस फ्रॉम डी रिकॉग्निशन वुड बी पार्ट ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट, क्योंकि जो प्राइमरी हमारा कैटेगराइजेशन है दैट इज इनटू द इन्वेस्टमेंट थिंग. नाउ there is one thing which is the interest income on trade receivable. It is classified into the operating category and not under investing category. The question arises, why? Let's understand the definition for an income to be classified under investing. Asset generating return individually. Okay, आपको किसी से पैसा लेना है, उस पे आप ब्याज, you are charging the interest, so it is individually and largely independent of the other resources. In this case, it is not largely dependent on the other resources because it is dependent on the primary operations of the organization. Right? आपको कोई भी सवाल हो आप लोग चैट बॉक्स में डाल दीजिएगा, we would take in the end. Now, moving next. Classification of expenses related to holding the investment property. हमने कोई प्रॉपर्टी खरीदी, इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी, एक्विजिशन से कोई एक्सपेंस हुआ, इट वुड स्ट्रेट अवे बी कैपिटलाइज्ड एज पर इंड AS 40. Rental income would be classified under the P&L under investing categories. Depreciation we just discussed, investment property. जो routine maintenance के expenses हैं, the expenses which are related to the routine maintenance, they would be part of the operating category. Transaction cost on sale, again investing category, and gain or loss on sale of investment property would be investing category. There is an important thing. We have received the cash advance from the customer under a revenue contract with a significant financing component. We would under Ind AS 115, then it would be classified under investing. अब आपका सवाल इसमें ये होगा कि अभी तो पीछे तो हमने बोला था इंटरेस्ट इनकम ऑन ट्रेड रिसीवेबल इज ऑपरेटिंग, यहां पर हम इसको कह रहे हैं फाइनेंसिंग. द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग हियर इज सिग्निफिकेंट. Significant as per Ind AS 115. We will discuss an example of this very shortly. चलिएगा. So, operating residual, investing we just discussed. For investing, it has to be, asset should be generating the returns individual and largely independent of the other resources. Right. Thereafter came the financing activities. Financing are there into type 1 liabilities and type 2 liabilities. We need to understand what is a type 1 liability, and whatsoever is not type 1, it is type 2 liability. So we can say it is residual. Type 1 liability debts from financing activities or raising of finance, जैसे borrowings, bonds, loans, etc. All the income and expenses from type 1 liabilities are classified into financing categories, whether it is the interest expense, amortization of transaction cost, it is as per Ind AS 109. Fair value gain and losses on a liability which is designated at fair value through P&L. So under Ind AS 109, there are two things: fair value through P&L and fair value through OCI. So fair value gains and losses on a liability which is designated at fair value through P&L. So all these would be part of investing, we can say financing category. Example of this is a typo error. Example of type 2 liabilities: payable for goods and services, contract liabilities, advance received from goods, lease liabilities which is Ind AS 116, decommissioning provision. Decommissioning provision का मतलब क्या है? We will understand and we'll do an example of it. Only the interest expenses, interest income or expenses, and the effect of interest rate changes are classified in financing. चलिएगा. Interest expense on trade payables is recognized under Ind AS 109. Interest expense recognized on contractual liabilities. We will discuss an example of this, and we will discuss an example of unwinding of discount. Ind AS 115 का एक बड़ा प्रैक्टिकल सा छोटा सा एग्जांपल है. Let's understand it. इसको बड़ा सिंपल सा समझते हैं. That today on 1 जनवरी 26 को there are two entities. One is the buyer and one is the seller. So a property has been sold for rupees 50 lakh. The customer gains the control. So Ind AS 115 talks about for recognizing the revenue of the term control. Control of the property has been given immediately. Control of the property has been given immediately. This means that revenue can be recognized. However, payment terms allows the customer to pay the amount after 2 years. आप इसको ऐसे मानिए, आज पीरियड 0 है, या आज 1 जनवरी 2026 है, ये 2 साल का पीरियड है। आपने रेवेन्यू यहाँ पे रिकॉग्नाइज कर लिया, लेना देना प्रॉपर्टी का कंट्रोल वगैरह सब दे दिया, जबकि पैसे का जो लेन देन है वो होगा यहाँ पर 50 लाख रुपए का। तो ये देख के सीधा सीधा लग रहा है दैट देयर इज एन इंटरेस्ट कंपोनेंट ऑन दिस वन। यदि ये पैसा यहां पर देना होता, सो इट वुड हैव बीन लेस देन 50 lakh. So there is an interest component that has come into picture. Now assume that the rate of interest is 10%. Present value of consideration is equal to 50 lakh divided by 1.1 whole square. This means 50 lakh as divided by 1.1 into 1.1. क्योंकि हमारे पास 2 साल है, that is why we have discounted it. हमारे पास जो प्रेजेंट वैल्यू इसकी निकल के आई वो आई 41 लाख समथिंग। तो यदि हम 10% के हिसाब से वो पैसे यहाँ पर देना होता तो हमें देना होता 41,32,231। अब जो परचेज और सेल रिकॉग्नाइज होगी फॉर द रेवेन्यू और इन द बुक्स, दैट वुड बी रिकॉग्नाइज्ड एट द फेयर वैल्यू विच इज द प्रेजेंट वैल्यू फॉर दिस वन 41,32,231। नाउ this is the beginning of the year. At the year end there is an interest income of 10%. 4132,231 into 10%, this is an element of the interest income. This is an element of the interest income for the builder or for the seller. हम बात करें इंटरेस्ट इनकम की। दूसरे साल में जो इंटरेस्ट इनकम बनेगी, ये पैसा प्लस ये वाला पैसा, इसका 10%, वो बनेगा इतना। अपॉन पेमेंट उसको क्या मिला, ये वाला प्रिंसिपल अमाउंट 1 plus this interest plus this interest, it would come to 50 lakh. Revenue is this one, this is the interest income. Interest income, we can say that one star is here and one star is here. These two total is 50 lakh. One important thing to note here is interest income for real estate developer is classified into operating category. Interest expense for the purchaser is classified under the financing category. Why financing? Because it is a part of type 1 liability. आपने उससे पैसा डायरेक्ट इनडायरेक्ट फाइनेंसिंग करा ली। Why it is a part of operating? Because उसमें हमारी दो कंडीशन थी। One is the asset should give the return individually plus independent of the operations of the entity. In this case it is not independent of the operations, क्योंकि बिल्डर का काम है बिल्डिंग बेचना, वो बिल्डिंग बेच रहा है, that is why this interest income has come, that is why it is part of operating. Should I proceed? Okay. Unwinding of discount under provisions under on provision under Ind AS 37. इसको आप ऐसे समझिए, today is period 0, this is period 10 years. यहां पर एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन is given the rights to do mining with the condition कि जब आप जो भी माइनिंग करोगे उसके बाद 10 साल बाद आपको इस पूरी की पूरी साइट को रिस्टोर करना पड़ेगा, यानी कि जैसी आपको दी जा रही है साफ सुथरी, आप वैसी इसको हमें वापस करेंगे। अब इस रिस्टोरेशन का एक एस्टिमेटेड खर्चा 10 साल बाद आप लगा लीजिए 1 CR का। नाउ ये 10 साल बाद यहाँ पे 10 CR है, तो इसका प्रोविजन हमें बनाना पड़ेगा आज से। कितना प्रोविजन बनाए, क्योंकि इसको 10वें साल में तो हम पूरा रिकॉग्नाइज नहीं कर सकते, और हम इसको हर साल 10-10 लाख रुपया भी नहीं कर सकते, बिकॉज देयर इज एन एलिमेंट ऑफ टाइम वैल्यू ऑफ मनी। देन हाउ वी आर गोइंग टू डू इट? एक्सपेक्टेड रिस्टोरेशन कॉस्ट इन 10 years 1 crore, प्री टैक्स डिस्काउंट रेट 8%, प्रेजेंट वैल्यू फैक्टर फॉर 10 years इतना निकलता है। चलिएगा, यदि मेरे को 1 करोड़ रुपए यहाँ पे खर्च करना है, तो यदि 10 साल बाद, तो उसकी आज की जो प्रेजेंट वैल्यू है वो आएगी मेरी 36,32,000। आई हैव मल्टीप्लाइड दिस 1 crore बाय सिंपली द प्रेजेंट वैल्यू। वन इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग टू नोट हियर इज PPE is being debated here. I won't spend too much of the time here. The only thing that I would mention it is a requirement of Ind AS 116 कि ये जो decommissioning cost है, इसकी जो present value है, it would be part of the cost of property, plant and equipment and would be amortized by way of depreciation. To decommissioning provision 36,32,000 का। हाँ, हमारा रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट है 8% का। हम हर साल फाइनेंस कॉस्ट इस पे रिकॉग्नाइज करेंगे 36,32,000 इंटू 8%, 3,70,560। तो ये जो हमारी फाइनेंसिंग कॉस्ट हुई है 3,70,560 की, 46,32,000 as multiplied by 8%, 3,70,560. Finance cost to decommissioning provision, it would be an interest component, so it would be part of the finance cost. अब क्या होगा, ये जो decommissioning provision है हर साल बढ़ता जाएगा and it would finally come to 1 crore. प्रोविजन बैलेंस एट द एंड ऑफ 31 दिसंबर, अगले साल इस पे 8% उस हिसाब से लगेगा। सो द पॉइंट हियर इज ये जो डीकमिशनिंग की प्रेजेंट वैल्यू थी, इसकी जो डिस्काउंटिंग या अनवाइंडिंग हो रही है, दैट वुड बी पार्ट ऑफ फाइनेंस कॉस्ट। दिस इज व्हाट इट वाज सेइंग दैट डीकमिशनिंग अंडर इंड AS 37। मूविंग नेक्स्ट, दिस इज सिंपल। income tax category within the scope of Ind AS 12, income tax expense what is there, and in case of an entity which is having the foreign operations, if there is any related foreign exchange difference, that too would be part of income tax category. And we all know that all other taxes, tonnage tax, production based royalty, they won't be for they are not part of income tax and will be part of operating category as residual. Discontinued operation as per IFRS 5 or Ind AS 105. The important thing here is there would be a single line item for the discontinued operation, post tax profit or loss and post tax gain or loss on measurement to fair value. So there is no requirement to classify it under the 5 categories. So single line for discontinued operations. So up till here we discussed operating, investing, financing, we discussed income tax, we discussed discontinued operations. This means that we have discussed the classification, requirement of income or expenses on the face of income statement. Thereafter, there was a requirement to show 2 new mandatory subtotals. Yeah. Two new mandatory subtotals were basically, we can say the operating profit. We discussed it earlier also, profit before financing and income tax. We discussed that if there is nothing on this portion which is investing, this one operating profit will be equal to the profit before financing and income tax. Even then this is the case, both must still be presented on the face. Reduce diversity in reporting. We discussed it earlier, so that operating plus investing plus financing, these two components can be there in some organizations, some entities it cannot be there. So a user can determine what is the net result of the operating results from the activities in which the organization primarily deals. Reduce diversity in reporting, achieve comparability. Comparability का सीधा सा मतलब है, हमने फाइनेंसिंग में बोला था कि किसी के पास इक्विटीज है, किसी के पास किसी ने डेट से पैसा लिया है, कोई एंटिटी ने इन्वेस्टमेंट से कुछ इनकम है, किसी की नहीं है. सो इट वुड गिव अस अ कंपेरेबल रिजल्ट. Comprises all income and expenses in the operating category. This subtotal is currently not permitted under Ind AS 1. Read with Schedule 3. So this is one of the key difference that we can in comparison to the earlier standard. Another thing, it would be a difference that we would discuss under while we would discuss the cash flow statement. It would become the starting point for the indirect method of the cash flow statement. Profit or loss before financing and income tax comprises operating profit plus all income and expenses in the investment category. This subtotal facilitate analysis of financial performance independently of an entity's financing decision. Financing decision means loans, borrowings, etc. Both subtotals must be presented even if they are numerically equal. That we discussed that that even if one or two are equal, they must be presented. This is the most important, most significant change in Ind AS 118 or IFRS 18. Management defined performance measures. So let's segregate this term into two. One is the management defined and second one is performance measures. What do we mean by management defined? In the financial statement, let's take an example. We show EBITDA, earning before interest, tax, depreciation. What the management shows? Management shows adjusted. What do we mean by adjusted? They think that, as an example, goodwill impairment is a one-time task. They exclude its impact. Restructuring cost, one-time impact, or any other exceptional item. Other exceptional item. Any other exceptional item, they basically adjust it from EBITDA to show it adjusted EBITDA. This is the meaning of management defined. What is basically the performance measure? Performance measure means it should show the performance of the entity. There are two things. One is the performance. What do we mean by performance? This means that it should be the subtotal of income plus expenses. Secondly, it should be for the entity as a whole. इन दोनों पे थोड़ी देर बात करते हैं. परफॉर्मेंस सब टोटल ऑफ इनकम एंड एक्सपेंसेस, यानी कि यदि हमने कह दिया एडजस्टेड एबिटा इज मैनेजमेंट डिफाइंड परफॉर्मेंस मेजर, बिकॉज इसमें आपकी इनकम भी है और एक्सपेंस भी है. इफ वी वुड से adjusted revenue, adjusted revenue is not a subtotal of income and expense because it includes only the income side. It won't be the management defined performance measure. What do we mean by entity as a whole? Let's take an example of Apollo Group. Apollo, I mean Apollo Hospital. They have got different, I would say, business segments. Let's say one is the hospital, one is the pharmacy. उनके अपने hospitals भी हैं, उनकी अपनी काफी सारी pharmacy भी हैं. And they say adjusted margin for pharmacy, for pharmacy segment. This is not showing for the entity as a whole because it does not cover all the segments. Hospital segment is not covered here. So although it is adjusted, but since it does not show for the entity as a whole, this is not a management defined performance measure. ये तो हुआ conceptually. Now what is the impact of it? Let's discuss it. Management defined performance measure, we discussed it, subtotal of income and expense. Outside the financial statements, where are they shown outside the financial statements? Example, investor presentation. In the annual report, there is a section we call management discussion and analysis. It can be part of press release. So management defined performance measure, they are shown outside the financial statement to communicate management view. Management view means adjusted of the financial performance. So what can MPM be? Adjusted profit or loss, adjusted operating profit, or adjusted EBITDA, wherever they have used the word adjusted. Now, other measures that are not the subtotal of income and expenses, we discussed an example of the adjusted revenue. Free cash flow, no component of the income or expenses. Return of equity, net debt, they are not the subtotal of income and expenses, and hence they are not MPM. There are certain requirements, I would say heads, subtotals which are required by the Ind AS: operating profit, profit before depreciation, amortization, and specified items. Because they are the requirements of the Ind AS as a whole, they are also not MPM. MPM in a nutshell: outside financial statements, financial performance as a whole, and subtotal of income and expenses. Right. Before, let me go ahead one slide. Why I said that it is one of the most important and most critical thing. All MPM disclosure must appear as a single note to the financial statements. Now, financial statements include notes to accounts. Financial statement में notes में आएंगे, and notes to accounts are subject to audit. This means from now on, MPM disclosures would be subject to audit. चलिएगा. Identifying the MPM key rules. Any subtotal of income or expenses used in public communication. We discussed. Communicate management view. Management view means adjusted EBITDA, adjusted margin of the entity as a whole. Uske kuch segment hai, then it won't be MPM. Not required by Ind AS, we discussed is numerators in the financial ratios. ये important है, इसको देख लेते हैं हम लोग. What is the meaning of numerator in financial ratios? Let's go to Apollo Hospital. Sorry, let's take an example of the Apollo Hospital. One of the key metric for the hospital industry is average revenue per occupied bed. It is equal to total revenue divided by total occupied beds. Let's take an example. Let's replace it with average margin per operating bed, or we can say average margin per operating bed. It would become to total margin divided by total occupied beds. This total margin, it is part of income plus expense. Now, if they have shown it as average margin, or they can say, let's take an example of adjusted margin. Let's replace it with the adjusted margin. Adjusted margin per occupied bed is total adjusted margin divided by total occupied beds. Now, total adjusted margin is our management defined performance measure. So this is what they are saying. A financial ratio is not an MPM. Adjusted revenue per operating bed is not an MPM, but it's numerator or denominator. In this case, the numerator, total adjusted margin, could be, if it meets the MPM definition, subtotal of income and expenses. Adjusted margin is subtotal of income and expenses outside the financial statements plus financial performance as a whole. This is what we have mentioned here. Adjusted EBITDA margin is equal to adjusted EBITDA MPM divided by revenue. Okay. So we discussed it. MPM disclosure, it would be shown as a single note to the financial statements. Notes in the notes to account, so it would be subject to audit. How each MPM is calculated. Reconciliation, important. We would discuss an example. This means that पुराने example पे चलते हैं. This is the total margin 1, 2, 3. Now this is the adjusted margin. These are the two numbers. Now these two numbers needs to be reconciled. Explain why the MPM provide the useful information, apply consistent definition across periods. One important thing, comparative information needs to be provided and reconciliation that we will see. We discussed MPMs are required to be financial statements. They would be subject to audit. Now, let's take an example of adjusted operating margin. The company uses adjusted operating margin as a key performance measure. This measure excludes the impact of one-time items such as acquisition-related cost and restructuring expenses. Operating profit as per P&L, it would come here. Adjusted operating margin is an MPM. This comes here. Now, these two are the reconciling items. As to how come we would reach at this number, what are the adjustments that we need to make to this number. So this is what the reconciliation is. This was an example from the Infosys. Let's take another practical example. This is Sun Pharma, which has shown in their annual report. The company presents EBITDA before exceptional items to provide better comparability of the underlying performance. EBITDA before exceptional items. So it is again management defined performance measure. Ultratech Cement. The company uses EBITDA per ton and adjusted EBITDA as a key matrix to evaluate the operational efficiency. Principles of, okay, so till now we have discussed classification into 5 categories. We discussed subtotals, 2 mandatory. We discussed MPM, management defined performance measures. Thereafter came the principles of aggregation and disaggregation. शुरू में हमने बात करी थी that as per Ind AS 118, financial statements are divided into 2 categories. One is the primary financial statements and second one is the notes to the financial statements. Primary financial statement, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement, and statement of changes in equity. It should provide a structured summary useful for an overview comparison between the entities. It should be consistent and notes to the financial information. It should be the material information necessary to understand the underlying items. What we discussed, information is presented in the primary financial statements and disclosed in the notes to accounts. This means that these two terms, presentation and disclosure, are no longer interchangeably. Aggregation and disaggregation key requirements. Classify by shared characteristics. Aggregate assets, liabilities, equity, income and expenses or cash flow into items based on shared characteristics. Disaggregate dissimilar items. Fair enough. Always disaggregate material items. This is important. Materiality is basically a matter of judgment. We cannot include a material items along with the others. These two are interrelated, that it should not obscure material information. Analysis of operating expenses, nature, function or mix. We discussed earlier that expenses can be shown either by nature, जो हमारा example था वो था by nature का, by function or by mixed. In most of the cases it is by nature. देखते हैं इसका example. Nature method, by nature, by function. In nature it says grouped by economic type, raw material, employee benefits and depreciation. This is how the normal financial statements are being prepared. By function, grouped by business activity, cost of sales, distribution, administration. This is a complicated one क्योंकि इसमें और ज्यादा disclosure requirements मांगी गई हैं. If you are followed it by function method, फिर उसमें आपको breakdown देना पड़ेगा. उसमें depreciation कितना है, amortization कितना है, employee benefits कितने हैं, impairment, inventory write off. So this standard permits both by nature or by function and the mixed one also. Primarily they are being prepared using the by the nature method. Even if it is prepared by function method, then there are additional disclosure requirements for depreciation, amortization, employee benefits, etc. Amendment. So this is the last section that we are going to discuss. Amendment to the other Ind AS. cash flow. While preparing the cash flow statement at this point of time, we take the net profit as per P&L. Now we will take the operating profit. Interest paid. Interest paid would be financing. There is no categorization of short-term borrowings or long-term borrowings. हम नॉर्मली क्या करते हैं कैश फ्लो स्टेटमेंट में, यदि कोई पैसा हमने 1 महीने के लिए या 15 दिन के लिए लिया है, वी वुड शो इट इनटू द कि हमारे नॉर्मल ऑपरेशंस में चाहिए, वी वुड शो इट अंडर द ऑपरेटिंग कैटेगरी. हियर इट नीड्स टू बी शोन अंडर द फाइनेंसिंग कैटेगरी. इंटरेस्ट एंड डिविडेंड रिसीव्ड अंडर द इन्वेस्टिंग कैटेगरी फॉर द जनरल एंटिटीज. इंटरेस्ट एंड डिविडेंड, इंटरेस्ट का क्या मतलब, वो हमारे पास पैसा, हमें पता है 15 दिन बाद जरूरत पड़ेगी, हमने कहीं पे इन्वेस्ट कर दिया, थोड़ा सा ब्याज मिल गया. व्हाट वी यूज टू शो इट, वी, क्योंकि बहुत शॉर्ट टर्म के लिए ऑपरेशंस के लिए चाहिए, हमने पैसा, उसका जो ब्याज है ऑपरेटिंग में क्लासिफाई कर दिया. हियर इट वुड बी शो अंडर द इन्वेस्टिंग. Now, entities with specified main business activities would classify this as reporting. This is not an exception. This is a normal scenario. Let's take an example of the banking industry. Banking industry का काम ही पैसा ब्याज पे देना और ब्याज पे लेना है. So there would be an interest income from the loans and interest expense from the deposits. So it won't be a part of investing. For them, it would be part of operating. Ind AS 8, basis of preparation. It has been renamed as basis of preparation of the financial statements. And जैसा मैंने आपसे कहा था, Ind AS 1 will cease to exist. इसकी कुछ रिक्वायरमेंट्स जाएंगी Ind AS 8 में और कुछ आ जाएंगी Ind AS 18 में. However, there is no significant change in practice expected. जो चेंज है, all that is there in Ind AS 18. जो Ind AS 1 का जो material content or certain items which have gone to Ind AS 8, there is no impact of it. Earning per share. Earning per share, currently we show basic EPS and diluted EPS. Yadi, if we want to show it additional EPS measure basis the MPM, then we can show it. EPS measure permitted only if the numerator is an Ind AS 18 specified subtotal or an MPM. Additional EPS can only be disclosed in the notes. It was earlier not permitted in Ind AS 33. Interim reporting, we discussed it, that quarterly reporting as an example, which is being done by the listed entities. MPM disclosure required in condensed interim financial statement at the same level as the annual financial statements. And in addition to that, MPM, we also need to show the comparatives. So in a nutshell, what we discussed classification into 5 categories. Classification, we discussed subtotals, we discussed MPM, we discussed aggregation, and thereafter we discussed impact on the other standards. That was all from my side. Now up to you, Ankurji, for the questions, in case we have any. Do we have any questions in the chat? Let me see.
Yes, Abhishek ji. Sorry, जरा मैं एक बाहर किसी काम में व्यस्त हो गया था.
कोई बात नहीं, Ankur ji. That's fine. So, Ankur ji, I'm done from my side. So I can see that there are no questions in the chat, but still I'm leaving it up to the members in case they have any questions. That
yes. If there is any queries still, then they can unmute themselves and ask the queries if left any. अभी जैसा बताया अभिषेक जी आपने, अगर क्वेरीज आपने मीनवाइल साथ के साथ सेशन के साथ ले ली है, तो मे बी पॉसिबल. नाउ नो क्वेरीज लेफ्ट बिकॉज नो मेंबर इज कमिंग अप फॉर दैट नाउ. So I am quite sure that the session will be enlightening, will help in enlightening for all the members, और कुछ doubts उनके सबके clear हुए होंगे, और आगे भी हम इस तरह के sessions और लेते रहेंगे. तो I am highly thankful Abhishek Jain ji for agreeing with us to take topic on this very important topic regarding the presentation of financial statements. क्योंकि आज की डेट में प्रेजेंटेशन फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स का होना और सारे डिस्क्लोजर्स हमें properly करना are very important for the stakeholders and the government also. So I am thankful to Abhishek Jain ji. Thank you, Abhishek ji, for your wonderful session. And Simultaneously, I am thankful to the all the attendees also who have joined them and motivated us to fix the sessions like that in future also. और future में भी हम जो भी और टॉपिक्स हैं अभी हॉट टॉपिक जो इनकम टैक्स एक्ट में कम्प्लीटली चेंज हुआ है उसके ऊपर भी हम बहुत जल्दी सेशन लेके आएंगे. तो आई रिक्वेस्ट ऑल द अटेंडीज टू प्लीज सब्सक्राइब अवर चैनल ज्ञान की बात, सो दैट जो भी उसमें अपडेट्स हम डालेंगे और जो भी हम वेबिनार्स करेंगे तो उनके पास ऑटोमेटिकली उस चीज़ की इंफॉर्मेशन आ जाएगी. और अभिषेक जी, आप अगर पॉसिबल हो तो पावर पॉइंट प्रेजेंटेशन अपनी शेयर कर दीजिएगा, सो दैट आई कैन शेयर विद all the attendees your PPT and address with them. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ankurji, and thank you very much everyone for joining in. And Ankurji, again, thank you very much to Gyan sir and Puneet Sakuja ji for inviting me. And after this, I would be sharing the PPT with you. Hopefully, I would be sharing either today or at the by tomorrow.
Yeah, sure, sure. We will share the attendees through them.
Sure.
Thank you
Thank you very
all.
much,
Thank
everyone.
you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.